Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm here to wrap up the first half of March. So it is actually March 15th, the day that I am filming this, so we are perfectly in the middle of the month, and so far for the month I have read 24 books, so I'm here today to quickly wrap them up. So not gonna lie, this month kind of started off kind of slow and kind of like some blah reads in there. It just feeling like very like meh, like not very book slumpy, but kind of like nothing was like grabbing my attention or keeping my attention, and I just had like a hard time focusing and enjoying books than usual. Like it felt like at the beginning of the month, like I don't know why. So let me know if anybody else was like that this month too. Like I feel like March is kind of has been a strange month. Thankfully though, the books I've been reading lately, I've been loving towards the end of the month, but the first ones were kind of like, they were okay. And so of course, as always, if you ever want to see more of my thoughts or my full reviews on any of the books that I read or that I'm going to talk about in this video, I do review every book that I read, and you can get to my Goodreads, which is where I post the reviews for every book that I read, through the description of this video. Without further ado, we're going to jump into the 24 books. The first book I read for March is Throttled by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in her Dirty Air series, which follows like this Formula One racer hero, and the heroine is his rival's sister. So I really enjoyed this one. I did the audio for it, and it was just like such a fun time and like refreshing. And yeah, I had a good time with it. I gave it 4 stars. I had only read one book from this author in the past, which was The Fine Print, which I did not enjoy that one at all and kind of like put her books off of my radar. But then I heard that this Dirty Air series was like really, really good. So I decided to give it a try, and I'm so glad I did because I really enjoyed this one. So we learn about the hero at the beginning of the story, and like I said, he's a Formula One racer, and he just has like a very tumultuous family life, like with his parents. His father is abusive, both like physically and verbal to him, and just kind of like expects perfection from his son. And then his mother has been one who was like rarely there, doesn't care, like as long as she's getting money from him every month, like she couldn't care less like how he's doing in life. Right away, I was super pulled into the hero, and then we meet the heroine as well, which her brother is the hero's rival. Like her brother is also a Formula One racer, which I know he gets a book later in the series as well. And so her brother and the hero have been rivals, but now they're actually both on the same team. And so she decided to travel with her brother and the team for like their summer or season. There's lots of like on the road, traveling about. The heroine's like trying to be like a vlogger or something, and so she like does like these vlogging things. Not gonna lie, the heroine wasn't my favorite, but like I was just sold on the hero. There's like a little bit of an age gap in here. I think she's 23, he's like a 30, 31. It didn't really feel like an age gap though, like they really read like they were the same age. I did like though that the hero falls first, and he's like super trying to get her attention and date her, so I loved that. Yeah, the racing in here was amazing as well. Like it was just a fun start to the series, and I definitely want to check out the rest because I've heard they only get better. Then I read A Thief in the Night by KJ Charles. This is a historical romance novella that's actually part of the Audible originals, so you can grab that if you have Audible Plus. This was my first read by this author, and it was okay. I ended up giving it 3/3.5 stars. It wasn't really my favorite, but I think if you're in the mood for just like a quick historical romance that's fun and sweet and like an historical, definitely check this out because I think it does deliver on all of that. So as soon as the story starts, we jump right into it with the two heroes meeting. They have some fun together one night, and then one of the heroes ends up stealing the like pocketbook from the other hero and flees, so turns into him being a thief. So yeah, he flees with his money and leaves. The money of course runs out, and then that hero like finds himself needing a job really quick, so he ends up posing as a footman. And then the other hero, he shows up because his father passed away. He just inherited like his earldom, and he gets to his new house, and there is said other hero like who stole from him. Like if you're ever one of those people who don't think that novellas can have a fully fleshed out plot and story, definitely read this one because this author is amazing at having a great plot. But for me, it was actually a little bit too much plot, and I wanted a little bit more of the romance, like for a novella. So yeah, it was like fun, and I definitely recommend it. It just wasn't my favorite. So 3.5 stars. Next, I read The Co-op by Tara DeWitt. This is a contemporary romance with a marriage of convenience, kind of second chance, and a lot of house renovation. I decided to check this one out because I had recently purchased a book box that's coming with like a special edition of this cover. So I was like, oh, like let me find out if I like it first. And I had read the other book by this author as well, which was Funny Feelings. That one I didn't love. I wasn't sold on it. I don't really get the hype for it. Like I thought it was just okay. I think I gave it 3 stars. And then this one as well, I gave 3 stars. So I just don't think this author is for me, which is fine because I know a ton of people who do love her books. But for me, I just didn't really connect with them. This one, the hero and the heroine, they had like a summer fling together back years ago when I think they were like in college or out of high school. They both spent time at their grandmother's beach houses, and the hero, like, he lives in like little small town that the beach houses were at as well. And so their grandmothers ended up like being in a relationship, and they have since passed away, and they left both the hero and the heroine a portion of the house that they shared. So their grandmothers had like had this like co-op house that they then combined and transitioned into like one big family home. So now that the hero and the heroine both own parts, they are trying to like piece it back into two separate homes. So like one can sell, like the heroine wants to sell hers and the hero wants to like keep his portion. They're dealing with that, and then the heroine, she actually has money that she can help with the renovation, and so they end up doing this like marriage of convenience situation for her to gain access to her inheritance. Now, we do have a lot of forced proximity. There is that marriage of convenience where they're married strictly for convenience. Like, they have very much like hate to love vibes because of their past. Just wasn't really a fan of either character, like individually on their own or as a couple together, so I wasn't invested. Him calling her Larry all the time just drove me bonkers. Like, he does it all the time, and I was just so irked every time he did it. I felt like the romance and kind of the relationship was kind of blah and like just very mediocre. After I read this, I saw somebody else had compared it to You Deserve Each Other, which I did not like that book at all. And so I was like, I should have stayed away if I would have seen that review first. So if you do like You Deserve Each Other, you'd probably like this one. For me, I didn't enjoy this one. Gave it 3 stars. Like, I just don't think this author is for me, and that's fine. Then I read Love at First Sight, which is a new Audible original from Cara Bastone, which I love her books. I have read them all, obsessed, love her Audible originals. Like, she's just such a great writer. Yeah, this is a new one that she just dropped the day it released, so I grabbed it and listened to it. It's a novella. I ended up giving it like 3.5/4 stars. It's definitely my least favorite that I've read from her. That said, the production of this, like the whole full cast and the narration, like they're so cute and charming and easy to consume. So I definitely recommend checking them out because I love this like Audible original series she has. These have no steam at all. Usually it's just the buildup of the relationship, of the characters getting to the point to like go on their first date or become a couple. So like there's not even kissing for most of these. This one, the heroine is a psychology student, and she's having to work on this group project with her classmate who is the hero. And so they have to go around and interview couples about their love stories and kind of like relationships and marriages and things like that. And then they have to then give their first impressions of these people's love stories. This was cute. Like, they definitely see a wide range of couples. There are couples who have been married for like decades. There's couples who were married and are now divorced, like new couples who've been together a few months or just started living together. There's even like a high school couple who's been dating, you know, like 2 weeks, but it feels like everything. Even do people who've been married and are like distant and dysfunctional. So they definitely like interview a ton of different people about their love stories. So I thought this was cute, like seeing the hero and the heroine spend time together, and like over time how they start doing these really like cute and caring things for one another without like realizing it. So like it was cute. It just didn't grab me as much as some of her other ones did. And so yeah, like it was cutesy, not my favorite. Gave it 3.5/4 stars. Next, I reread Vivid by Beverly Jenkins. I was asked to be like a co-guest on the Historical Hellions book club live show for February, which we did in March. So the first weekend of March was the live show. So much fun. I loved being able to reread it. I did the audio this time, and I know some other people had issues with the audio. I enjoyed it. I love Beverly Jenkins. This is actually one of my favorites from her. I love the just like small slice of life moments we get with the characters. I love the sassy heroine who's a doctor, the hero and him being a single father. Like, it works so well for me. I love it so much. So yeah, I felt the same way I did the first time, 4.5/ rounded up to 5 stars. Like, such a good one. Next, I read the Kane series by Shanora Williams. So I started with Wanting Mr. Kane. So this whole trilogy follows the same couple, which I actually didn't realize before going in for some reason. The whole thing is age gap. The hero is 17 years older than the heroine, and he is also her dad's best friend. So she's kind of like a grown up with him coming around the house, and like he was her first crush when she was a teen, and just like all of those things. So we have that whole dynamic going on for the whole trilogy. This first book I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really great. I loved the forbiddenness aspect of it and the tension and the angst between the hero and the heroine. Like I said, she's been crushing on him for years, and he is always like really nice to her. And one night, she's actually 18 and she is just about to move away to college when her father, who is a cop, ends up getting into like this accident, and the hero ends up grabbing the heroine and like letting her stay at his house with him while her father is like at the hospital going through surgery. Both are kind of like bonding over this like traumatic thing going on of this like possible loss, which she doesn't lose her father, but like the possibility of that. They end up coming together that night. So So from there, the boundaries for the relationship are definitely tested and the story goes from there. So yeah, this one is slow burn, but I thought it delivered really, really well. Like I said, I love the tension and the angst buildup that they have. There is some like over the top drama towards the end of it with like another other woman situation of one of his exes, which I could have done without that entire storyline. But other than that, it was fun. Like I gave it 4 stars. So next I read Breaking Mr. Kane, which is the second book in this series. So again, this follows the same couple. We have that forbidden age gap, dad's best friend type of situation. And we're following them from exactly where the first book left off. So this one was very over the top. Like I said, at the end of the first one, I wasn't a fan of the drama that happened with kind of like his ex and this drama she creates. And that just carries on into this book. And like the first half of the story, like the hero and the heroine aren't even around each other. The heroine's at college and doing things there. College drama in here just felt over the top. I really don't like that like whole, the other woman or the ex being like this villainous character. I hated that whole storyline. Like I just wanted more of the hero and the heroine together because when they were, it was so good. But we didn't get a lot of that. So this one I gave 3 stars. So the third book is Loving Mr. Kane, which this series just went downhill for me. I should have stopped after book 1. So this one I ended up giving it 2/2.5 stars. Pretty much hated it. This one, like I mentioned, we already had the over the topness with like her college drama, that other woman ex drama. And now in this book, all of a sudden, like we bring in the cartel. And I was like, what? Like, what is happening here? Like, it was just so over the top. I didn't care. I was really frustrated with a lot of the characters. Like the more I read, the more I was convinced that the hero does not deserve the heroine. Like she deserves better than him. Like I didn't even want them together by the end of this book. Like I should have just stopped at book 1. So I will just fondly remember book 1 and try to ignore these last 2 books. The third book does deal heavily with content warning for miscarriage and fertility discussions. So just know that going in. Next up, I read Manhunt by Vanessa Vale. This is the first book in her On a Manhunt series. I decided to try this one out because I really do love the cover. And this author is supposed to be at the Denver signing that I'm going to at the end of the month. So I wanted to see if I liked it enough to buy it and like get it signed when I'm there. Unfortunately, not the case. I ended up giving this one 2 stars and it just wasn't for me. So this one was described as contemporary, office workplace, and a small town. This one, the blurb says that the heroine accidentally one day fills out this like sex questionnaire and she sends it to her boss, who is the hero, instead of sending it to her best friend. So that definitely does happen. But then what does happen in the book was like just way less risque, not a lot of scandalous moments to it. Like it was super boring. And I was like, that was it. Like the questions were like, how many sexual partners have you had? And she's like, 1. Like, have you had sex? Yes. The heroine's answers were just like 1-word answers. So boring, so blah, like I just wasn't feeling it. The heroine's also described as like nerdy and shy and doesn't realize her own beauty type of girl, like, which I really don't like that trope and setup. And then it's very much like the hero is so much bigger than her and she's just this like small, short little thing he just wants to like pick up and put in his pocket. The heroine like works at this company and the hero is her boss's boss who owns like the construction company and he is in town to like figure out what's going on at the workplace. And so we see her emailing him accidentally her like sex questionnaire. And later on, we flash back to earlier in the day in the morning. Both of them end up running into one another at the coffee shop without realizing like who they are. This was all like pre her emailing him as well. This was just very insta-lovey. I hated how obsessed like with the size difference was in this book. Like the first thing the hero thinks when he sees her, like he refers to her as half pint and he's like already nicknaming her and calling her like baby and all of these things like as soon as meeting her, which I'm like, who does that? Like who talks like that? He's just falling over her immediately from meeting her just because he like hears this like phone conversation she's having and like she can spit out these math facts and he's like, ooh, like I need her in my life. Then after that, later in the day when they go their separate ways and he gets that like sex email from her, then he's like, ooh, I need to show her like all of these good times. Like I'm gonna teach her all the things. There is an age gap in here as well, which the heroine is 22, the hero is 37. Like it honestly didn't feel like it because like I said, the story just felt very surface level and it really didn't get into like their age or the depth of like these characters. This book just irked me. So it is also annoying that this book was set in small town Montana because lately like all the books are set in small town Montana. Like does any other small town exist in this country? Like, come on. I will say I loved how this one's kind of like a reference to 16 Candles. I love that movie from the 80s, like a classic. So I did like that because that's kind of like how the quiz thing is referenced in this book. Otherwise, it's just like very insta-lovey. Like this all takes place over one weekend. Like they're in love like instantly. And I thought the way that things were handled with the heroine's past, like she has a history of being sexually harassed at work and taken advantage of. Like I just wasn't a fan of how that was kind of handled in this book. The third act of conflict wasn't it either. So yeah, 2 stars for this one, probably not the author for me. The next 10 books I actually read as part of the Romance Takeover Readathon, which I was a co-host for in the middle of the month. And so I'm just gonna quickly run through like my quick thoughts and star ratings for these, because I do go in depth of talking about these books as I read them for the readathon, which you can see my vlog for that. I'll link it in the description of this video because I talk all about the books in that. So first up is In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This one was a lot of fun. It is a marriage of convenience, contemporary romance. The hero is a single dad to his niece that he is the legal guardian of. It has a pining hero. He has wanted the heroine from high school and now she's back in his life. It has a curvy heroine. It has grumpy sunshine. Set on a farm, like such a fun time. I gave this one 4 stars and really enjoyed it. Next, I read The Duke's Secret Cinderella by Eva Devon and I ended up giving this one 3/3.5 stars. This is her newest historical romance. Love and obsessed with the pink cover. This one is like said to be Cinderella meets Ever After vibes, and it definitely delivers on that. I just wasn't a fan of how long the heroine holds on to the lie of like who she is before telling the hero. Was just like super frustrating. And I've also realized lately that Cinderella stories just are not my jam. So yeah, this one was okay. I'm always like super pulled in to this author's books, like by the covers and the blurbs, but then they just don't always hit for me. So yeah, 3 stars/3.5 stars. Next is Tristics of Venom by Penelope Douglas. This is a sapphic romance, bully romance, new adult. It's set in high school. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I was obsessed with the 2 heroines. I thought their chemistry and connection was just like super palpable, and I could just like feel their passion and chemistry for one another. Like these 2 are definitely opposites. They grew up on like opposite sides of the track, so to speak, but they do have a lot in common as well, and I liked seeing them connect over that. And I always enjoy Penelope Douglas books. This one was actually one of their last ones I needed to read. I really enjoyed it. Like this one is bully, which most of their books are, but this one felt like less bully than their other books. So yeah, fun time, 4 stars. Then I read The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by KJ Charles. This was their newest historical romance release. So I grabbed it and listened to the audiobook on the release date. My library actually filled my request and got it for me. This one I gave 3 stars, and I just don't think this author is maybe for me. I might try one more of their books, which I have been recommended a couple times. That is supposedly better, so we'll see. But yeah, this one I kind of had issues. Same with like the Audible original novella I did from them, which is just like a lot of plot, and I wanted like more focus on romance. But otherwise, a new historical romance to check out. Next, I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in the War of Lost Hearts series. I thought this was a great start to the fantasy series. I gave this one 4 stars. This is definitely more fantasy than romance though, so I definitely think that is good to know before you go in. I knew that before going in and I was fine with it. There is definitely a romance in here, but it is definitely background happening, like where the fantasy is heavier in the story. I really liked the characters in here and kind of the fantasy and lore and the magic system they have going on. Basically in this one, the hero ends up the mentor, kind of like grumpy teacher of the heroine and trying to teach her like the ways of her magic. So we have that going on as well as like other things in the world. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great start to the series, 4 stars. So then I read The Black Lily by Juliet Cross. This is the first book in her Vampire Blood series. So I ended up giving this one 3/3.5 stars. This one was definitely fun and entertaining. It is a vampire paranormal setting, but it actually is a fairy tale retelling series as well, which I didn't realize until right before I started it. This one has Cinderella vibes. So like I mentioned a couple books ago, like Cinderella vibes aren't really my favorite. I did like the twist in this one though, with like the heroine goes to the ball to meet the hero, which in this world, the vampires rule and they have been reigning over humans and using them kind of like as blood bags for like centuries. The hero is the vampire prince, and then the heroine is actually like a peasant who wants to have this like uprising and decides to go and assassinate him. Yeah, it was a fun setup. I loved the stabby heroine, and I'm interested in the rest of the series because I know like the next one I think is a Snow White and vampire mashup. So yeah, can't wait to check out more from it. Like it was fun. It just wasn't my favorite from this author. I read When the Earl Met His Match by Stacey Reed. This is the 4th book in her Wedded by Scandal series. This one you can definitely read as a standalone though. The whole series can be read as standalones. Love this book. This was my first 5-star read of the entire month. Like so good. This is a historical romance, marriage of convenience with a disability rep as well because the hero is mute. So him and the heroine end up writing letters to one another, and she needs a marriage of convenience because she has been compromised. She goes to him and then realizes that he's mute. She has some secrets of her own, Like just such a beautiful romantic book. Loved it so, so much. Definitely a new favorite from Stacey Reid. Then I read My Professor by Shanora Williams. This was a super quick contemporary novella. I grabbed the audio from my library. This one was just okay, like it was fine, nothing special or extraordinary. Ended up giving it 3 stars. In this one, the hero and the heroine, they end up meeting at a coffee shop, running into one another, kind of hit it off. The heroine is a college student though, and they meet again later when she goes to her college class and he is her new professor. So there's lots of like sneaking around, there's an age gap, there was just too much like drama from like college situation in here that I wasn't a fan of. Like it was fine, mostly steamy times, like 3 stars. Then I read There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. This is the first book in her Sinners duet. This one has a serial killer hero. Both him and the heroine are artists and they live in San Francisco. And the hero is very intrigued by the heroine. And they have this like very cat and mouse, very like obsession vibes, like dynamic, which I thought was super interesting. Ended up giving this one 4/4.5 stars. I thought the pacing in here was done really well. I enjoyed both of the characters in this one. Like that is what I was super interested in, was the 2 characters, like the hero and the heroine, and how they connect. I love seeing the hero, like how he starts to feel things and doesn't understand these like emotions that the heroine is pulling out of him. He also doesn't get like how well she knows him and can play him. Like it was just so interesting and fascinating. So yeah, I gave it 4/4.5 stars. And I read Blame It On The Tequila by Fiona Cole. This is the second book in her Blame It On The Alcohol series, which I had started this series over a year ago and so finally got back to them. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars to. This one kind of has like a second chance-ish vibe between the hero and the heroine. They're actually step siblings turned best friends. And the hero and his friends ended up leaving and being in this like rock star band. And so he's like super popular now and they haven't talked in 5 years when the story starts. Now they're back in one another's lives. We get a lot of like the flashbacks from their past, which I think helped really well for the story. Like this series is so steamy. It was just a fun time. Like they're both pierced. There's exhibitionism happening. Like it's just delicious. Like rock star romances don't really work for me, but I felt like this one had a good balance of like the rock star aspect to it. It wasn't like super prevalent in the story. I was also not a fan of the kind of last bit of the story, like the last 10 to 15% of the story. Some drama and like some past things are revealed, which I felt like was too late in the story to give it time to breathe or be. And like it was just like very over the top and I was like, this came out of like nowhere, like what's happening? So yeah, it's a quick read. I enjoyed it more than the first book in the series, and yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Then I read There Is No Devil, the second book in the Sinners duet by Sophie Lark, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This one continues on from the first book, so again it's a duet. I thought it was really well done as a duet. I enjoyed like the same things. Like I really liked how the hero was just like very obsessed and intrigued by the heroine, and kind of like the way that she balances him out as well was super interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed this duet and I'm so glad I finally got to it. Then I read Blame It On The Vodka by Fiona Cole. This is the third and last book in her Blame It On The Alcohol series. Love this one so much, gave it 5 stars. This one, first of all, I'm obsessed with friends to lovers romances, and this one is best friends turned we wake up in Vegas married, like turned to lovers. So in this one, the hero and the heroine first met in college. She went up to him, like propositioned him, and then he actually turned her down and was like, no, if I can't get more than one night with you, like we're just gonna stay friends. So I loved seeing that setup, and then how they did become like best friends and have stayed friends for years. When they're out one night in Vegas at one of their friends' weddings is when they are out partying, and like the next morning that they wake up, don't remember anything, but they're both wearing wedding rings. So the heroine's ready for an annulment. She's like, I never wanted to get married, like this is not for me. But the hero is like super romantic. He always wanted to get married and only marry once, and he's been pining for the heroine for forever. So he's like, this is my chance, like I need to convince her to stay married to me. So his grandparents end up finding out that they're married as well, which is who raised the hero. And he's like, you know what, like to appease them, can we go there at least and show them this like happy facade, like have this fake like marriage of convenience situation. And then the heroine as well, like her family finds out about it too. And her father's like doing a political campaign. I was like, hey, this would like really help out the image right now. Like, I was obsessed with these two. I love their connection and chemistry. Like, it was so believable from their friendship. All the side characters and the families were amazing. The slow burn tension in this one, like, whew, it was drawn out so well. Loved it so much. Like, this hero, holy smokes, does this series and this book deliver. Like, it was so steamy. Like, I was not ready for the hero's dirty talking and steam in this one, but boy, did I love it anyway. series. Like the unrequited pining from him for her, like so good. I totally understood the heroine's hesitation for wanting to stay married. Loved how it all worked out. Like obsessed with this book. Love it so much. Like I need to go buy a physical copy like right now. I need it in my life. There is content warning in this one, though, for domestic abuse, both verbal and physical. Then I read an Arc of Heist Bitter by Sarah Kate. This is the 5th book in her Salacious Players Club series, which this book ends up coming out on March 24th. I am on her ARC team though, so I did already read it, gave it 5 stars, loved it so much. This whole series centers around the Salacious Players Club, which is this like sex BDSM kink club. So the first 4 books were all of the like owners' stories and their romances, and so now we're getting like other members who are a part of the club. This hero, Ronan, in this book, like he is a new favorite hero. Like I thought I knew him before jumping into this because we do see him in the other books, but like holy smokes, I was not ready for this man. Like he is so nurturing, so sweet, such a cinnamon roll, but also like a daddy. Like ugh, so good. Yes, we do get to see some of the other familiar characters from the series, a couple of them, but they definitely don't overpower the story. Like it's definitely Ronan and Daisy's story, which I liked. You see Eden a lot though, who she features in all of the books and is going to be the next book in the series, which I can't wait for. When at the very beginning of the story, we learn that the hero was in a relationship with this woman in the past. They had like a great summer fling and they ended up going separate ways. Like she was a single mom, she needed to get back home, and they just lived in different places. And so when they split, he gave the heroine money for her daughter and was like, hey, like, let me just do something nice for you because like, you know, you meant so much to me. And so he set up this like trust fund, so to speak. So we know that at the beginning of the story. Then we cut 2 years later and we find out that the heroine was the daughter of the woman he used to be with in the past. He doesn't realize that. The heroine, when she was 18, her mother ended up passing away from cancer, and she was obviously like all alone and sad and going through things. And then it has been like 3 years, I think, since her mom passed, when the heroine found this like money that she inherits that she never knew about. So she found out about it, thought it was from this man like Ronan Cade, who's the hero, and she's like, who is this guy? Like I have no idea who he is. She doesn't know about her mom's history with him, like she can only assume. And so she decides to track him down and start working at the Salacious Players Club, which is where he visits a lot. She's been the new like drink server there for a couple months when the hero and her end up having like their first interaction. And like he doesn't know who she is at all, but she knows that like obviously he meant something to her mother in the past and like gave her $1 million. So the heroine, one night, her and her coworker, they end up like bidding every night on some of the auction nights that are happening. And so the heroine ends up losing the bet that night. And because she lost, she has to go join the auction and be put up on stage, like to auction out a date for a night. So the hero sees her up there and he ends up bidding on her and winning the like 1 hour time spent with her. And so it kind of goes from there. The heroine is like living out of a van. She is homeless. The hero finds out and takes her in and rescues her. And like I said, he's just like a nurturer and a protector and like, you know, takes her to his house. This one was definitely slow burn, which I thought definitely was needed for the story. I liked the slow burn tension and the build up. Like it's halfway through the story before we're even like getting physical with each other. This one does have a significant age gap. So it is a 35-year age gap. The heroine is 21 and the hero is 56. But like, I didn't mind it because to me, the heroine was mature enough, I felt like, in situations. And then the hero, he has so much more to his backstory and so much hurt and trauma from his past that I just loved seeing the like character exploration of him. I did have a little bit of issues with this for how long the heroine took to tell him about their connection in the past. It did drive me bonkers, but otherwise, love this book. Love the hero so much. Like he's a new favorite hero in the series. Definitely check it out. It comes out on March 24th. Then I read Mafia Target by Mila Finelli. This is the 4th book in the Kings of Italy series. So this one is an Mafia romance. This whole series has set place in Italy, which I love the setting. In this one, we got to see a little bit more of Europe. So basically the hero in this one, his dad is the hero of book 1 and 2. And so he was his son and like apparent heir to like this mafia kingdom, but because of his sexuality, the other like mafia heads didn't want him to inherit. So he's kind of been out on his own. Like he fled his house and has just been kind of like out trying to make his own way, do his own thing. So I do think the background of having already read the series will help if you come into this one, but I mean, I guess it could stand on its own as well, because I do know plenty of people who read it and enjoyed it on its own. But yeah, I wanted a lot out of this book, and I sadly didn't love it. I ended up giving this one 3 stars, which I think I'm like a unpopular opinion because I know so many friends who have loved it, which I'm glad. It just didn't work for me. So the one hero, he's like on the run and trying to like set up his own thing, travels around to Europe a lot. And then the other hero is an assassin who was paid to take him out. But of course that doesn't happen, and he's like super intrigued and like can't ever pull the trigger when the hero is around. So this one I felt like was just way too much steam instead of plot for me. Like it's 5% in and they're already like hooking up at the club. Like it just felt very lusty and wasn't what I wanted for their story. I wanted like more pining, like more drawn out. I wanted more tension, like this whole like hate to love situation. But instead they're like together very early on into the story. So I just didn't care about the rest, I guess. So yeah, I mean, there is plot in here with the hero finding out that somebody else like tried to assassinate him as well. And so they kind of like work together to figure that out. There were some great moments in here with the hero and his family, who are the couple like of book 1 and 2. Like to see that. And yeah, it just wasn't my favorite, sadly, in the series. It was okay, just not for me. Like I prefer more plot and connection and chemistry to the characters than just like a ton of steam. So I mean, take that into consideration, I guess. That said, I'm still going to continue on in the series. Like, we get a little bit of a setup for the next book and the epilogue, and I can't wait for it. Then I just finished Right Man, Right Time by Megan Quinn. This is her newest book in her Vancouver Agitators series, which is a hockey romance series. So this one I gave 3. It's really like a firm 3.5 stars from me. This author is definitely hit and miss for me. I have only loved one of her series, which is the Getting Lucky series. Also, like, just not a rom-com girl, so take all of that into consideration when I'm giving my review right now. So in this one, the hero is a hockey player. He plays for the Vancouver team. And in the prologue, we see him get devastated when his high school girlfriend that he's about to propose to ends up, like, cheating on him at the very, like, beginning of the story. Like, immediately, I felt so bad for this hero, and, like, he pulled me in to his story immediately. So we then jump 2 years later, and the hero now has trust issues, which, I mean, rightfully so with what happened to him. And he's thrown for a really big loop because his ex, the one who cheated on him, is now working for the marketing department for the hockey team and is like around him all the time and kind of like pestering him, I guess, so to speak. We meet the heroine. She's a college student and she's like interning for this like publisher or like writing thing, and she has to write up her final project on hockey, which she knows like nothing about. One night she's at like this place and her ex-boyfriend ends up being there, and he's now dating her rival from her like intern workplace like nemesis. And so she goes over and kisses the first guy she can find, which ends up being the hero. So she's like, just go along with this, like, pretend you're my boyfriend, please. Like, my ex is here with, like, my nemesis. Can you just help me out? So they ended up pretending to fake date. And then that's when she finds out, like, oh, he's a hockey player. Like, I have no idea who you are. And then he, like, suggests, like, he can help her with her hockey thing. And, like, maybe she can help him because he's trying to like avoid his ex as well. So they start this like fake dating situation. This one was just a very quick read. Like, I did the audio for it, which I think Megan Quinn always has amazing audios. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to read her books, to do the audios. This one has an age gap. The heroine is 21, the hero is 31, but it honestly never felt like they were different ages, if that makes sense. Like, she's in college and she lives in a dorm and jokes about like him being so old. But like, other than that, they read like they were the same age. I did want more hockey time in this. Like, we don't get a whole ton of it. I did love the like fake relationship setup and how the tension can like build over time, and like the steam in here was amazing and like so good. I did have an issue though with the conflict at the end of the book, which is kind of where my rating started to go down, because I mean, I could see it coming. Like, the hero who had trust issues in the past is learning to trust again, and then of course one little thing is going to blow it all up and he loses all the trust that he just built up with the heroine when he overhears something, assumes it's right without like finding out all the facts. So that's what happens in this book, and I hate that. I also wasn't really a fan of how all the other women in this were cast as like villains, like his ex, her workplace nemesis. Like, they're all like these villainous other women, and I like hate that in books too. Why can't we have like women supporting women and lifting each other up instead of having like all these other girls like trying to go at me, you know? And like, listen, I wasn't going in here for laughs or like a good time, like, because I'm not a rom-com girl, but like, this was described as like people are laughing at this book and having a good time, and I'm like, I never laughed during it. Like, am I missing something? Like, where was the rom-com? So yeah, well, I didn't love this one. There was plenty I did enjoy from it, mostly the first whole half of the story. Probably one of my favorites from this author, which again isn't saying much because I haven't enjoyed a lot of her books. So yeah, it was just a firm 3.5 stars from me. All right, so those were the 24 books that I have read so far for March. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of the books that I just talked about, or maybe what your favorite read for March has been. I would love to know. Hopefully the last half of the month, I will have more amazing 5-star reads. Here's hoping. I'm excited for what the rest of the month brings. There are still some new releases I'm excited to get to, as well as catch up on some other reads I want to read. And then of course I'm going to the Readers Take Denver signing, which is so soon, and I can't wait. So yeah, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.